It's more than just a handful of pixels on your website. It's a conversion channel that can be optimized to create a better customer experience and to make more money. Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. Well, hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Selena Knight, the retail strategist, and today I'm going to share with you a really intriguing conversation that I had when I was hosting a panel discussion for the NORA network. That's the National Online Retailers Association here in Australia. So I was asked to host this panel, and when I got the brief, I actually thought to myself, I'm not really sure that I'm going to be great at this one. I think the original brief said something along the lines of the power of new intelligent search. And I remember thinking, I don't actually know what that means. Was it some kind of SEO thing? Was it some kind of Google shopping thing? Was it this as simple as searching for something on a website? And so I had to dig a little bit deeper. And of course, you realize that for me to be sharing this with you today, the conversation had to have been quite exciting because I don't do boring. Anyway, I jumped onto a call with the NORA network and with Paul Erskine, who is the head of digital and data delivery at Strandbags, which is a handbag and luggage company here in Australia, and Alex Luscombe, who is the head of customer success at a company called Search.io. And during the chat, I got so data-driven and nerdy, and I was so excited about the conversation and what was happening that I was like, yes, I will definitely host this panel. And as we did the masterclass, I was thinking about how we don't often get to see behind the scenes of enterprise style customers and how we have this concept in our head of what they must look like. But the reality is, even though this is and I don't know what their turnover is, but it's a very big company, so I would expect multi-million dollar company, they only had one e-commerce person. I know, I was amazed. And you'll hear through the conversation how that has now grown to, I think it's 3 people. But for me, hosting the conversation from a very different, not mindset, but a very different customer base. Like most of you guys listening probably aren't at that same level as Strandbags, but that's okay. Because what you get to see is that it doesn't matter what size your business is, we are all going through the same problems. You'll hear about Strandbags and how their website wasn't working for them, what they had to think about when they were looking to re-platform, what they ended up going with, and how they test and measure what's working and what's not. And you can take a whole bunch of this information and implement it into your business as well. And that's why I think it is really important to hear conversations from people who are operating at a level way above where we are. It's why I love CEO Club, because I love hearing businesses that are doing $100 million and the things that they're implementing, because then I can say, oh, what is one little thing that I can take away and start putting into action in my business right now so that I can be on my path to hitting 100 million, 200 million. And sometimes it is just a change of mindset. Sometimes it's as simple as maybe you'll start using one of the metrics that Alex and Paul talk about. One of those little things, just something as simple as a metric, can change your entire business. So I don't want you to be distracted by the title and the fact that we are talking about search bars, because the conversation behind all of this is something that you can use to grow your business no matter what level that you're at. Okay, so join me in this panel that I have hosted with the NORA network as we talk about the new generation of search and its critical role in accelerating conversions. Oh, but just quickly, before I forget, as this episode goes live, we have just a couple of spots left for the Read gift fairs. We are giving away complimentary strategy sessions where my team and I will go through your business, look at the obstacles, and help you build out a roadmap for growth. Now, as I last looked, there were only a couple left, but if you are heading off to Read gift fairs in Sydney, 9th to the 12th of April, jump on over to scaleyourstore.com/read. We're going to be there under the Scale Your Store brand. And if you are interested in either Scale Your Store or you just want to come and have a chat to us and tell us how much you love the podcast, we would love to say hello. We're down near the cafe. So on your way, when you're grabbing a coffee or grabbing some lunch, make sure you pop in and say hello to myself and the team at the Scale Your Store stand. And if you want to grab, hopefully there are a couple of sessions left if you're listening to this as the episode goes live at scaleyourstore.com/read. Okay, let's jump into today's episode. Today, we are going to be digging deep into a physically small but often overlooked part of your customer journey. Whilst the digital real estate that your search bar takes up on your website can be just a handful of pixels, the fact is, if you're not optimizing search, you're missing out on a conversion channel that could potentially be bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. Hey there, and welcome to Nora's Retail Up live webinar series, the new generation of search and its critical role in accelerating conversions. I'm Selena Knight, a retail strategist and CEO of The Retail Strategists. And joining me today are Paul Erskine, the head of digital and data delivery from Strandbags, and Alex Luscombe, head of customer success from Search.io. Now, I know that you are all super eager to hear how you can potentially add hundreds of millions of dollars to your bottom line. But before we jump in, let's just cover a few housekeeping items. We have around about 45 minutes for our panel to discuss the topic, and then we'll be open for 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. Now, during the session, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat bar. And once we've wrapped up, we'll jump back in and Paul and I and Alex can answer them as we go through. Now, Strandbag's successful replatform has fueled growth, and their search site capabilities are paving the way to higher conversions, which we all love. And it's doing that through self-improving ranking, deeper integrations, and AI-driven results. I have to say, AI is one of my favorite things in the world. So let's jump in and hear all about what's happened and the results that Strandbags are seeing. So, Paul, during COVID, everybody else was panicking, but you decided that it was time for a replatform. Can you tell us why you picked that time in history to go and change everything up?
Thank you, Selena. So like you said, probably around this time last year, we were looking at what do we do? Do we invest in our legacy website platform, or do we look at a newer technology? So we did a market scan. We found Shopify, and we really liked what we saw. I think one of the key things we liked was the fact you have the Shopify platform if you need search capability. You look for the best in market for search. If you need to merchandise your site, you look for an application that's best at merchandising on your site. If you want personalization, you look at what's the best personalization app. So we really like that kind of microservices setup. So instead of custom building our own platform, we look at more of a drag and drop style website build. So yeah, that's where we commenced from this time last year. We gave ourselves a really tight window of 4.5 months from start of design to finish. So we had to make some decisions really quickly along the way. But yeah, that basically got us through lockdown. Lockdown flew in for us because we started the project just before it. And finished just as we're about to come out. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience, and like you said, it's been very, very successful for the company. So yeah, really good.
Okay, I'm going to go in and say you're the first person I've ever heard who said a replatform was an enjoyable experience.
No, it was that the first time I've ever said it as well, to be honest. So yeah, I think it does highlight the way technology has changed rapidly, even over the last 2 years. So I think technologies we're talking about now have really come a long way. from back in the day. So
you said you did some market research, but what did you feel as a company was broken to undertake such a huge task? I mean, changing a POS system is difficult. Changing an entire website platform from go to woe and adding all this extra functionality that we're going to talk about is, and such a short time frame, is mentally quite taxing. But what was the driver where you went, you know what we've got is not going to grow with us?
yeah, I think the website at the time, say 10 years ago when it went in, was good at the time. But I think from a Strand Bags point of view, at that point, the stores were everything, and okay, there was a bit of let's build a website, so that's another channel for us, but it wasn't, it hadn't been given a massive amount of attention as in a real growth platform. So it become, as we made changes, as a lot of legacy websites do, it would break other parts of the system. So it's like, okay, we're changing the homepage, but then another part of the system stops working, and it just took a lot of time. So because we've got such a lean team, so in IT we've got 13 people. In e-commerce at the time there was one person.
Wow.
There was no one in marketing, so it was a very lean team. We didn't have time to spend weeks trying to troubleshoot things. We wanted a platform that was built for the future. Really, we didn't want to. We didn't want to continually make changes that would potentially break the system. We wanted to start with a fresh sheet of paper, which enabled us to relook at the design, the different components that made up the system, and find really good partners that were innovating, so we could tap into that innovation and really leverage what they were doing. So that was the exciting thing, that as soon as we started speaking to Shopify, we started to be impressed by Shopify, but also the ecosystem that was plugged in. So it became a no-brainer, to be honest.
I mean, that's one of the things I love about Shopify is you get your customized website without having to have a custom website. So what were some of the things that you realized that Strand Bags was going to need as it grew? Because quite often we're reactive when we think about the ecosystem and the kind of apps that we're going to need. But what did you map out for the future of Strand Bags, and how was the Shopify platform going to help you?
Yeah, so the key things that we wanted to look at were, obviously we've got great stores and we've come up with a new evolution of the store to really make it ready for the future, and we've seen massive results in terms of bricks and mortar. So we wanted the website to be a showcase for the new store. So we wanted it to be, as you go onto the website, you get navigated to fashion or you get navigated to luggage, but we also wanted to bring that personalization into the site. So how do we make the site custom built for you as a shopper, so that when you go onto it, we know who you are, we know what you like, so that we can then service products to you as best you need them. So one was personalizing the website itself, so showing recommended for you, things like that, but also how do we do that through search? So when you go into search, we recognize who you are and we can then service products to you, so that it's like when you go into a store, you don't want to go in and just wander around and try and find something. You want to be navigated to where you want to go. So it was just they were the principles really wanted to build into the foundation, so that the customer could have the best experience possible on the site.
That is such a guy shopping quote. When you go into a store, you don't want to wander around.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You want to wander around to find things that you want and not go down a dead end kind of thing.
So did you know before the replatform that search was something that you had to address, or did that come after you launched your new Shopify site?
Yeah, so I'd previous experience. I worked at Mecca previously, and I know that there was a few options looked at, and a lot of the search that I've seen in the past, there's a bit of custom building, and you build part of it yourself, or you might get a product and you tailor that, but there's a lot of kind of manual intervention. So and I think it's the way technology's gone, if we could get a product that really had a lot of those smarts built in. So maybe we started off building manual search results, but then over time it would learn what customers like or what they're navigating for, and then by exception we could tune it. Because I think the way technology's gone is a lot more ML type smarts built into different products. We wanted something that was as light touch as possible. As I mentioned at the time, we had one person in e-commerce, and that's now grown to three, but it's a very lean team. So we wanted a product where we had people that really were delving into search and looking at it in a new way that we could then grow with them. So as we learn, we can take over more responsibility. But as we're a small team at the moment, how could we tap into their expertise?
I have to say that I've been in e-commerce for a very long time, and I remember the search function on my, if you've been around for a while, wait for this, OzCommerce website was so tragically bad that we would add things into product descriptions just to be able to get them up. Now, thankfully, the world has changed a lot, but I wanted to ask you, Alex, what do you find is a retailer, merchant's prime sort of motivator to come and look at the search function as a whole? It's not until it breaks, or is it something they identify before they call you in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's lots of different aspects to it. I think the first one that you called out initially about the size of the search box.
Sometimes it's not even a box. Sometimes it's a little magnifying glass.
And I think that can, when you're working on a website and you're running a website and you're looking at it every day, you can kind of become blind to the things that your customers actually interact with. And I think the size of that search box and the fact that you know how to navigate the website, you know where all the products are, you know how it's supposed to work, can lead you to actually ignore that search box and that data. And that box is where your customers are actually coming to the website and telling you literally what they want from you. It's almost like it gives you the ability to read their minds. So I think there's there's lots of kind of groups of customers, but there's the customers that pay attention to their search data, and they look at what people are searching for, and they see what their search conversion rates are, and they understand the importance of that. And those customers might be happy with their current search, or they might realize there's a lot of room for improvement. So when we talk to customers who are in the space where they're paying attention to their data and they realize there's a lot of room for improvement, that's a very easy conversation for us to explain how they could improve functionality. And usually those people will realize, I'm having to. It can fall down in a few ways. Either the system is not flexible enough to get them to where they want to go, or they're just having to intervene too often. And what we find with a lot of search systems, and we kind of refer to it as the lever problem, where maybe your CEO comes to you and says, I searched for boys' dress shirts, and where it's showing dresses. And that's actually a hard problem to solve, but you might go and solve it with a rule somewhere, and you'll pull that lever, but then you're going to break something else somewhere else in the system. And you run around and you're pulling all these levers, and then eventually it just gets too complex and everything falls down and you almost need to start again.
It's kind of what Paul was saying with his website. It's the same thing, isn't it? You fix one thing and then another thing breaks, and all of a sudden it's like, oh.
Yeah, and that's the fundamental problem with search that we're trying to solve. We don't think that search should be something that you have to be manually intervening in all the time. There's going to be situations where you do want to manually intervene, and that's fine. But we believe that going back to this, what are you fundamentally trying to do with search? You're trying to bridge a gap between what your customers are searching for and what you can provide to them, what your products are. And in that gap is all the data that goes back and forth, the things people type, the things people click on, the things people buy. And we believe that within that information is enough data to essentially tune your search itself. So that's what we're trying to drive towards.
So then just thinking about what Strandbags needed with their replatform, can either of you jump in and say, what was the initiator of that conversation? Like, what was the outcome that you were hoping to achieve? And why did you choose Search.io, Paul, to help you achieve that outcome?
Yeah, so I can talk to that. we had the core Shopify platform. We had, okay, here's all the key things that we want to add in. We want a personalization engine, merchandise, search. We want a digital asset management system. So let's get recommendations from our the partner we were working with, MindArc, but also let's do our own research. And what we did with each of those, we narrowed it down to the top 3, and that was quite easy to get to. So we did a similar thing with search. We had the top 3, and we looked at, obviously, cost was a factor, functionality was a factor, local support was a factor, and also, I think innovation was actually quite a big one. And also, could we outsource some of that analysis and recommendations to the company themselves? So almost partner with them, see them as almost like an extension of our team. And to have the team in Australia is a big part of that. So what we did, we looked at the top 3, and obviously Search.io was part of that. And we asked the team that were helping us build the website, like, what do you guys think? And the feedback we got from them was that Search.io are really looking at search in a whole different way. They're looking at it's different from what a lot of other companies are doing. There's a lot of innovation. They want to move quickly. And that really appealed to us. We obviously, as a company, we're innovating a lot. We've got a new store concept. Next week we move to a new office in the city. We've got a new website. We've got a new data platform. So we want to work with people who have got that innovation built into their DNA. We didn't just want to buy a product and then use it. We wanted to really partner with them. And I think once we started having discussions with Alex and some of his colleagues, we could really see their passion for the product and the way it was growing across the world, kind of thing. And that really appealed to us. And we could see some of the other big players in the market moving towards Search.io, so it became an easy decision in the end.
I think that was a very commercially savvy decision. Kudos to you, to think about it more as, who can we partner with? Like, we know that we need this service. We know that we need the analytics. We know that we need somebody to interpret this information. And we've got a choice. We either bring somebody on board, which is going to be the expense of good luck finding someone at the moment. But once you find them, training them up, getting them up to speed. So I think you said you're going to look at maybe incorporating that down the line, but right now you're not losing anything, because you have all those brains working in the background for you. You have this data that you can access without the delay of trying to interpret it all yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that was huge for us. Like, I can literally pick up the phone to Alex and ask a question and get a lot of good insights in like 5-10 minutes, as opposed to me scratching my head trying to work it out. So
which tab do I have to press to find that answer?
And I think, like, to me, IT, they talk about technology or whatever, I say it's 50% the technology and 50% the people. So Search.io might be a great product, but if the team behind it, if you're contacting them and they're too busy, or you don't get the right kind of interaction, that doesn't work either. So it needs to tick all those boxes. And I think that is a new evolution as well. The technology is new, but also the way partners work with companies is new, and that's something we've really seen as we've launched a new website. It's not like, this is how much it costs and then that's it, and then it's, okay, pay me this and I'll do this. It's more of we've got a partnership here. Obviously, you guys, we need to pay for the service, but we're getting good service and we're seeing conversion go up. Everyone's a winner. And I think that really, that shone through right away. And when we started speaking to Search.io, that we can engage them to help us till we've got someone who can take over search, and we may still keep partnering in that way going forward, because we can straight away tap into people that do this day in, day out. They can look at our site because it's on the Shopify platform. So it's really a refreshing way of working, to be honest.
And I think that for quite some time, we were happy with plug and play solutions. We were like, just get the thing in, get it doing its job. But now, especially with e-commerce moving so fast after the last couple of years, we've realized as merchants that you can't afford to not pay attention to the data just because you're too busy. And like you're saying, you didn't have a huge team. So I wanted to ask you, Alex, as far as the implementation went, what were some of the obstacles? What were some of the wins? Like, tell us about the actual journey. Because Paul says it was exciting. Like the replatform was exciting. I need to hear about this.
I think what the Strandbags team had is they had a great agency that they were working with as well, who I think helped them with a lot of the kind of heavy technical lifting. We try and smooth as much of that journey as possible. So from the Shopify side of things, what is great is it's just literally one button, and then all your Shopify data is synced into the search platform, and you don't have to worry about APIs and all of that kind of stuff. So that's like Paul was talking about before, thinking about things from an ecosystem point of view and how those different products can play nicely together can save you a lot of time in terms of IT headaches. There's always the temptation to try and, oh, I've got this requirement, and if I don't get this requirement quite right, oh, let's do something completely custom. But then you just can set yourself up for a lot of pain down the track. So I think the way Paul and Strandbags approached the problem set them up for probably an easier journey. So yeah, we spent a lot of time just working with Paul and the team, and we knew there was a goal to get people more engaged with search.
I was going to ask you, what was the key brief? And it was engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was something that Paul and the team wanted to drive. I think it's always important when you're setting out on a project like this to define what success is going to look like for you before you start the journey. Otherwise, you can end up making decisions that are just too guided by various opinions. But if you can keep within that framework of, well, what do you want search to do for you? And I think for Paul and the team, it was very much focused around improving the overall customer experience and helping customers find what they were looking for more quickly. And I know Paul might want to expand on this, but one of the things we've spoken about was the Strandbags team were very quick to react when they saw changes when they went live. So the positioning of the search bar was just a little bit too hidden. And by shifting that around, they were able to get more engagement with search. So yeah, we've made changes like that along the way, but I think the Strandbags team had a clear idea of how they wanted the site to look and feel, and we just really worked with them to guide them through that path of how they might want to display results for the best possible interaction. And now what we're really working with them on is, okay, search is up and running, we've tuned the platform to a certain extent, how can we start really eking out those extra conversion gains from that point forward? So that's what we're working on them with now.
Sorry, can I ask you, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, is there a metric you could use if you were looking at your own site to understand whether search is working or not? Because you just said something there and immediately a website popped into my head. And there is a company, a very big Australian company, and they're multi-platformed under different brands, and their search button is on the left. And I go to their websites a lot, and every time it frustrates me. And I'm just like, where's the search? Oh, it's over there. So is there something, if people are looking at their site and going, how do I know if it's working or not? Is there any metric that you use, or is there any like gauge to understand whether you really need to look at this?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to look at it. What we would there's the difference between people engaging with search and being able to find the button, and I guess one thing you're going to want to look at there is what percentage of sessions on your website involve a search. And what we typically see is that number is getting to between 40 and 60% now.
Wow.
People are getting trained in a lot of, and it depends on your brand and how many things you sell and what, if you're searching on Catch or My Deal, two companies we work with, you're going to want to be searching more often just because of the range of products. Where it's a smaller website, maybe search is going to be a smaller percentage of those sessions. But yeah, looking at the sessions that involve the search is one thing to measure. The other thing is, and there's a few different ways you could measure this, but is what is your search click-through rate, or what is your search page exit rate? So
do you have some
what that will
benchmarks for
tell
us? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Search, yeah, I mean, again, it can range, but you want your search click-through rate for e-commerce to at least be somewhere between 30 and 50%. So of the times that people search, how often did they click on a result? And again, that can depend on the behavior of your users, how loyal they are, whether they're shopping for deals for certain things. So sometimes we can see if it's a certain type of product that people know you sell on the website at a really good price, sometimes that can have a really low click-through rate because they're just coming, they're searching, is the price good? Yes or no. If it's good, they're going to click and buy. If not, they're going to go away. But they're the two. What you mainly want to be doing is understanding what is the benchmark that is good performance for your site, and what are you doing to improve that, and are you measuring it over time? That's the real baseline that you want to be at to understand whether your search is improving or not.
Okay, so then that is the perfect segue to the next question, which is on the Strandbag site. What did we start off at, and then what did we move to? What's your current benchmarks that show that all of this effort, all this time, this really customizing that user journey, that it's actually paying off in terms of dollars?
Yep. So on the legacy site that we had, we weren't measuring actually those click-through rates or conversion.
That's because you didn't have anybody there to analyze the data.
That's true. So yeah, I'll kind of just to fill in the gap since we went live. So we went live back in August last year. So we launched, we wanted to get ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which we did. We got the site in, got it embedded down. Then we had, because we're working in an iterative way, we're still launching features going through, leading up to the Christmas period. So we've come through Christmas. We've started a new financial year at Strandbags the 1st of March. So where we're at the moment, we have, we've got all the analytics, obviously, with Alex and the team. And we're going through a round of looking at, okay, what's our performance been like and what are the recommendations from search? So it's actually a good time in having this session because we're actually in that stage now, because we are moving to becoming a really data-driven business. So like Alex said, having those metrics, what was our click-through rate, what is our target, and what we're hoping to get to. So I think at the moment it's around 5%. I can post the webinar, I can give you here's where we're at, and here's the new target. We're literally in the process of going through that. We have actually, our head of e-commerce has actually gone off to have a baby. Should be. I think she's due in the next couple of days, which is exciting. And we've got another head of e-commerce trading come in. So he, at the moment, is getting familiar with the site, and we're going to have a session with the search team next week. And I think that again shows the benefit of working with a company like Search.io, even though we've had a bit of turnover or a bit of change on the Strandbag side. That it's like things just keep going as is. So we'll have that session. We'll go through. So Alex is pulling together the recommendations for us to say, okay, here's your performance so far. Here's what we recommend to drive performance even more. And we're really excited about that because personally, I like that gamification of it. So say for example, it's 5%. We want to get to say 6% over the next 6 months or over the next 12 months, whatever that is. That then becomes a metric that we measure ourselves against, and we'll have conversion rate, click-through rate we'll benchmark it now based on what we've done to date up until the end of February. And it's like, okay, for the next quarter, what's our target? For the next 6 months, what's our target? And then we'll measure ourselves against that. So yeah, we're literally in the middle of it at the moment. And I think, as Alex said, we saw quite quickly where we put search on the website, we weren't quite getting, the customers couldn't see it straight away. So we've moved that. And I think with the platform we've got and with the team that we've got from a MindArt point of view and a search point of view, we literally speak to MindArt, speak to search and say, okay, we want to move it. It's a ticket in the next sprint. And I think that's why I'm saying it was straightforward, because a lot of the time it would be Search.io and the company that we work with to develop the website, speaking to each other and going, okay, it's ready, have a look, does this look okay? And yeah, I think it also want to highlight, just while we're on that, we've got like I say, a small team of kind of like a small team in IT of 13 people. They work in all the back end metrics, and I think just that combination of, say, the MindArt team or e-commerce team or back end IT team and search, it's like everyone's on top of their game. So when we go to do things, literally we'll raise a ticket in Jira, put it into the next sprint. It'll get done in 3 or 4 hours duration. We'll then deploy it into our UAT environment. We'll test it and then we'll implement it. So that agile way of working has been very effective for us.
I think also having that metric and knowing that a 1% conversion can be, for some companies, the catches, we could be talking millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. Like, it sounds like a small amount, 1%, 2%, 5%, but actually moving down the line, that is a lot of money. But most importantly, what you've done is you satisfied the customer's need. They wanted something and you helped them find it. And the easier you can make that journey, the higher you get, the higher chance you've got of actually keeping those customers coming back again and again. We call those boomerang customers. To get those boomerang customers coming back and again, because they know how easy the whole process is going to be.
Exactly. That's as Alex mentioned at the start, the fundamental thing. We wanted to make the website a place that customers go and they enjoy going there. So if I search for something, I want to see those search results. I want to find the product I'm looking for, and that's what we'll start to see. We've seen conversion go up significantly. We've seen obviously sales and revenue go up. So it's been a real success story, and it's not, you couldn't pinpoint one part of the site and say, okay, yeah, that's the part that's done it. But like I say, we focus on search and we go, okay, what's the 5 recommendations? Let's implement those. Not all 5 at the same time. We'll do one, then the next one, and we'll do those where we're doing changes for, say, the homepage or the product description page, or we'll add in more personalization into the site, or we'll get data from our merchandising tool and we'll tweak that. So there's little percentages all over the place, kind of thing, and that's the exciting thing about it. We can measure it and we can look at, okay, here's the target, are we on track? And that's where we'll get things like, actually, there's things that maybe are not, customers are searching for this, they're not finding it. How do we address that? And say there's manual intervention now, how do we make that automated using ML models in the future, so that as these things come up, it doesn't even need manual intervention, it just happens. And Alex can probably talk to that better than me, but that's our hope, that we'll start off doing it manually, and as the system learns what we do, it takes action on its own.
I was just sitting here thinking, you just said a few minutes ago that on the old legacy site, you didn't even look at any of the data, but you are so excited about the data. It's like you get all excited as you're talking about it. So it's amazing how something, those handful of pixels in the digital real estate can change not only a business, but also the engagement within your team. Like, you've given, like, you are so excited about talking about data.
Exactly. No, that's it. Like, because you can be measured by what you're doing, because there's nothing. See, you're working away and you're doing all this stuff, and I've done good things here, but you can't measure it. It's kind of like, I think it's, part of the human psyche. It's like you want to measure what you've done. I mean, it's that saying that if you can measure it, you can manage it. So if you've got a number and it's, say, 5%, and you want to get to 6%, so we did it with sales last year. Okay, here's the target. The new site got launched and just kind of like smashed the target out of the water, kind of thing. But I think it's these fine margins, like you mentioned earlier. If we're measuring every part of the site and we're continually improving, sometimes it might go the other way, but at least we're like, okay, hold on, what's happening here? Like, we can catch that part and address it. So yeah, I think that's the exciting thing for me, because all those small margins added up, like you say, can add up to tens of millions of dollars in the end.
Alex, Paul has mentioned like 5 times in the last few minutes all your recommendations. So I want to hear about those recommendations. What other kinds of things that you've suggested from the data that you guys are pulling in that can be used or you've already implemented to help Strandbags get those amazing conversion rate increases?
Yeah, so I think the first step, just for anybody who's at the start of this journey and it feels a bit daunting, is just start measuring something. Like, like we were talking about before with click-through rates or exit rates, just start paying attention to your search data. Make sure that you've got the search data in Google Analytics or something, and you can see the queries people are typing. And then from there, measure a key metric. And so once you start doing that baseline assessment, and all of that is kind of built into our platform already, but for people who are not using us, Google Analytics should be able to do a fair bit of this, or your current search platform should as well. There's a few things you really want to start paying attention to once you've got the data in, and that is, what are people searching for, and how often are they engaging with the results? And pretty quickly, you should be able to see, like, what are your top 100 queries and what is the worst click-through rate for those top 100 queries? And there might be things like, and these are some of the baseline manual interventions we do up front, and then layer on some of the more advanced systems. But people might be searching for a brand name in a certain way, and that brand name's changed. So you might be describing the brand name in your product data in a certain way, and people might search with an acronym, or they might search with a shortening of the name. You want to make sure there's a synonym for that, so that the way you describe the data matches the way people search. So that's one of the key bridges you need to build. There might be other things, like maybe your description of the data isn't the right way that people type and search for it. And I think you mentioned before, Selena, like the old system where you were going in and like changing the description so things would show up. You don't want to be hacking descriptions and keywords to make it rank the way you want, but you do want to describe your products in the same way that your users describe your products where you can. And where you can't, like where there's that some kind of brand limit, or there's a way that you've been told you have to describe something, that's where synonyms come into play. And then you want to start looking at, what are some of the other things in your data that you can use to tune the relevance? So you might have data like, what are your highest rated products? And then what we can do is go into the algorithm and say, okay, well, let's give those products that have got a 5-star rating a boost. But maybe things that have got a 4-star rating and have 200 ratings, they can get a strong boost too. So there's some tuning of the algorithm that you want to do. And you can, if you have the infrastructure to do that, you can A/B test these things, or you can just switch them out for different weeks and see how performance shifts. So yeah, looking at it on a kind of, what are people searching for? What are they finding? How are the results reflective of what I want to show to the user? And does what I want to show with the user align with what they're looking for? Because you might have a certain internal strategy, but you really want to filter that through. Is that how people are engaging with our products and our results? The other key thing that's really important is your 0 result searches. So what are people searching for that you don't actually have any stock for? So there might be demand that is unmet. And if you're not paying attention to that unmet demand, that might be easy money for you.
I was going to ask Paul that question, actually, do they do any of their merchandising based on search results?
That is the plan. So the plan is to use that to then feed back into how we merchandise the website itself. So there is obviously searching for products or collections of products, but the plan is we'll also move to content on the site. Mm-hmm. So lifestyle content. So you've gone to Byron Bay and it's a bit of a photo shoot and some descriptions, but also bringing that up as part of your search. So you have the product themselves, collections, and like content. So that's something that we've got an area that we've kind of earmarked as part of our search results to show kind of rich content, which is more like kind of like blog posts about people going traveling, that type of thing. So there's a whole other dimension that we've not kind of tapped into yet that we're excited about.
And what about even like product mix? If someone is searching, if you're getting a 0% search rate on a frequently searched for term, is that going to drive your product inventory moving forward?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think what we're doing at the moment is putting in the foundations. Like I said, there's a whole new store concept. We're launching later this year a kind of new store of the future, and we're moving to a new building in Piedmont. All the foundations are going in, excuse me, to drive being a data-driven business that continues to evolve, kind of thing. So yeah, that's definitely, like you said, that would definitely go back to the buying team as a recommendation. And I think having that data to back it up. Because if it was me going, I think we should be buying these types of handbags, I don't think I would get much airtime. But
It's because you're not browsing.
yeah, exactly. If I come back with some data to say, look, here's what I think we should be doing, I think that'll be listened to a lot more.
Alex, I wanted to ask you about personalization when it comes to search. Like, is that an actual thing? Can we both go to the Strandbags website and get a different answer for what we type in based on our previous browsing or buying behavior?
Yeah, definitely. So what having a flexible search algorithm allows you to do is take in different inputs with the query. So let's say when somebody searches for guess handbag, or let's just say guess, that's probably a better example. Say someone types guess into the website, and you know that that person has tended to purchase things from the handbags category before. What you can do is pass that piece of information, say category affinity equals handbags, in with the query, and then you can boost handbags above other types of items. So any type of information that you have about your user can be used to influence the results that come back. Generally, what we recommend, or a nice place to start, which is relatively simple, can be just, do you have a member plan? And do members get discounts on certain products? And if so, if you know the person is a member when they're searching because they've signed in or you've cookied them or something, then boost member products for them, and they'll get more value out of being part of that membership program. Maybe it's free delivery, maybe it's some other perk, but that's just a good place to start. With personalization, you don't have to go super complex straight away, because it can be daunting. But again, having a goal of what you want to achieve with personalization and starting small is definitely doable. And yeah, it's something that definitely can be incorporated into search results.
I know this is like, the Apple with the iOS changes and everything, but I really want you to have that data about me so you can just show me what I want to see. maybe I'm the outlier, but I just want to see what I want to see, and I'm okay if you know that.
Well, I think the one of the terms I quite like is, it's like you go into a store and the staff member that greets you knows everything about you and everything people like you like as well. So they're able to recommend things to you based on you as an individual. So I think that's what this technology is kind of starting to enable us to do. To say, okay, we know who you are, we know things that you like, but also people like you like this kind of thing. What do you think of this? So it's enable us to recommend things that hopefully align to what you're after.
I have to say that's like you were like reading my mind. I was going to ask you, what is your plans for the future? What's on your roadmap for Strandbags and search, and increasing those conversions, increasing the customer experience and the customer journey, customer lifetime value?
So yeah, I think like we mentioned, so last year was all about getting the new website launched and picking the best in class applications to complement the website platform. So the plan this year is to really tap into them, because obviously we've talked about we're using Search.io, but we know there's a whole host of recommendations that we can tap into, and that will be backed up by data. So it's really to act on those recommendations and really learn more about the application. Now we have more people in the team that can tap into that, and we can action the results that come out. So that's from a search point of view, that's what we're planning to do. And we've got, again, more recommendation. We've seen recommendation on the website itself, or recommendations on the website, really helping to drive conversion. So bringing in more personalization. And yeah, just I think content's a big thing. I mentioned the Strandbag stories. So looking at, say, if people are starting to go abroad now, what type of luggage, what type of carry-on luggage we've got. I think there's been a lot of innovation in the buying team. If you look at the merchandise that is on the site, it's really kind of modern, and we're seeing across the board really, just the company going through a big transformation. So yeah, it's just tapping into all of those channels really.
I'm pleased to say when I just came back from Canada, before I went, I was looking for compression packing cubes. And you are one of the few sites that actually showed me compression packing cubes, not just packing cells. So thank you. Alex, what have you guys got planned for Search.io?
Yeah, so it's a really exciting time, and there's a bunch of things probably to just layer on top of Paul's answer as well that we're going to be working with the Strandbags team on. So we're, like Paul mentioned before, we're constantly looking at how can we innovate using the data that is available to us to improve results, make them more relevant to people. So one of the things that there's a few things that are in the platform now that we're going to be implementing with Paul. One of those key things is expanding on the machine learning. And the machine learning element of the platform is essentially how we rank items for certain queries. So relevance is one component of search. So which products are relevant to my search query when I type, but then how should I order those? I've got a whole bunch of things that could be relevant, but how do I order them? And what the machine learning does is allow the kind of wisdom of crowds to influence results. So if I type guess, what are people most likely to buy? Because we know what they purchase as they go through the sales journey. So let's put the things we know. If we put the best selling handbag for that query in position one, it's more likely to sell. So that's one of the key things we're working on with that platform. It's already part of our tech, but we really want to make it easier for our customers to understand. So you can see what it's doing, and also you can see what kind of uplift it's generating over time. Because I think a lot of the problems that people have with machine learning platforms is that black box problem. So just trust us, it works. And then you don't really know what it's doing, and you don't really know why it's doing what it's doing. And that can really erode trust. And we want people to trust the system and understand what it's doing, why it's doing it, and what kind of uplift it's generating. So just a better lens into all the data is one of the key things we're working on. One of the other things we just launched recently, which we're really excited about, is and excuse the complex terminology, but we're calling it neural hashing. But what you can think of it as is concept-based search. So you don't have to worry so much about keywords. What we do is we understand using some quite complex mathematics and all of the language available on the internet, how words relate to each other in a conceptual space, so that we know that, and I might get my terminology wrong here, so I apologize, that clutch and handbag, or these things are related to each other in the same kind of concept space, and you don't have to go and create a synonym for them. So that's one of the things that we've rolled out now, and we're engaging with our customers to roll it out onto all of the people who are live with us at the moment. And then the final thing, which is really powerful, and our kind of North Star that we're aiming for, is all these systems just constantly learning from data and being able to suggest new potential configurations of the system to you, and then you being able to activate an A/B test with search, like you might A/B test a banner on your homepage or a new UI, being able to go, hey, we think this configuration is going to generate X amount of uplift for you. Do you want to experiment with it and put it live as a test? And then you could run those two systems and go, okay, great, this is winning. I'm going to make that my production system now. So yeah, everything really focused around data and making people's lives easier with managing search. But yeah, that's what we're working on this year.
I think that's the perfect time to open up Q&A, and we do have a couple of questions. If you're watching, pop them into the chat, but I'm going to start with my question first before I forget it, which is it possible, or do you already use the content that is user generated within a site? So things like the words within a review to drive the AI, the machine learning, don't know the technical term, but to affect search results.
You can if you want to. That's definitely possible. So any piece of data that you have about a product, you can add into the search engine, and then you can determine how much that influences results. We haven't done loads of that with actual review content so far. But it is certainly something that is possible, particularly if that's something that's a critical component of your website and the way people interact with your website. That's definitely something that you may want to do.
Yeah, but you made me think of it when you were talking about the way people describe things and whether you have to have synonyms. And I just think there's probably a lot of, especially things like pop culture brands, where they have their own acronyms, and I'm a bit old for that stuff, but there's words that they use, and that would be great if that affected search.
Yes, and an interesting thing we've seen in the past is when we've been working with companies who have forums and they want to index their help forums, is that they'll often say, our help forums are outranking all of our written content and we need to change the rules. And the reason it does outrank it is because people write the same way other people write. And therefore those kind of UGC type elements tend to, on occasion, have better relevance than the way you write internally. So it's definitely worth paying attention to, and something that you might want to do in different situations.
Cool. Okay, I have a question from Darcy for Alex. How do you see product recommendations fitting into the search user experience on a site?
Yeah, that is an awesome question, and actually reminds me, I forgot to mention something else we're working on this year. So we actually see search and recommendations as really tightly overlapped, particularly the type of data that we capture during a search journey. So when someone searches for something, what do they end up buying? And then if we understand also what are the other things that are in their cart, we can then build up models that basically say, people who bought this also buy this. But the other thing being that with the concept-based searching that I was talking about before, you can take the concept of one product title and match it to the concepts of other product titles while not showing the same product the person is looking on. So recommendations are something that we're looking to build out. We believe they're very tightly overlapped with search. And we think that it makes sense to have all that data and those recommendations in one platform. It is a little bit further out on our roadmap, but there are certain things that you can power right now using the platform. So you can do, this product is like this other product. But what we want to move towards is, people who bought this also bought this, and using all the different pieces of data in the platform to be able to do recommendations.
Okay, our next question is from Emily, and I would love to hear you both give me your opinion of this, because one is from a more technical side and one is more from like customer experience. So I'll start with you, Paul. What would you suggest is a perfect no results page for a brand that is not stocked by your site? So we kind of touched on this earlier, but knowing that you might later add it to your inventory if it is frequently searched for, and you can do a deal. So Paul, what would you do in your position? We've seen that there's a high frequency of this product search, but you don't have it. What are we going to put there?
So yeah, I think that's where if you can, looking at marketplaces, obviously Alex and the guys work a lot on marketplaces and plug in that gap. So say it's something you'll never stock, or it's not something you're planning to stock, but I think it's something that's happening a lot in the States at the moment. It's like a brand within a brand. So it's almost finding a partner company who does that type of product to partner with, and obviously coming to some kind of agreement there. But yeah, I think it can definitely tap into the roadmap. But I think that the plan, for growth in Strand Bags is to launch more brands. And if we're getting data from search, obviously it needs to be in the same kind of category of products, but I think that would definitely feed into the buying team. And I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I probably can't talk about, but there's a lot of looking at, okay, how do strong buys just continue to grow and evolve, and that search, if we're getting good results from that, is, I've got that noted down, because I think that's definitely a key area that can help us drive forward.
Okay, so you didn't answer Emily's question. I'm being a bit of an advocate for her, which is, so somebody's typed it in, where are you going to send them?
I think, like Alex just mentioned, that you would also like, so I think you'd want to keep them on the site. So you'd want to, it depends how far away from what they're searching, but I think having that kind of link, if it's something that's been continually looked for, I think that's something that the system should learn. So if it's something similar, it's like, okay, we don't have this, but we've got similar products, and also ask them to potentially add more information and maybe give them some kind of incentive to shop other things. But I think you'd want to keep them engaged with the site. You wouldn't want to lose the customer, but I think obviously if you don't have that product and no way to provide it, it's something you probably need to take away. But yeah, I think that's where you'd be looking for suggestions. I think that user interaction is something that we're keen to explore further as well. So getting, say, user content, user recommendations back to us to help drive the way forward, and giving them some kind of reward for that, I think would definitely be something worth us looking into as well.
Okay, Alex, so you have looked at the data and you have seen on the Strandbag site, there is this product that everyone is searching for and they don't have. What is your recommendation for where we're going to send them?
It's an awesome question, and there's like,
I
don't want to hedge too much, but there's obviously different ways you can solve it. So one way, and this has actually come up a few times recently, is, okay, I know I don't have that brand, but I know what some similar brands are that I do have. So one easy fix is just to show results for those similar brands. Now, I guess you might want to consider, is that the best customer experience? Like, I'm just dropping them on a page where they asked for something and I'm just showing them something else.
Netflix does it. You type something in, if they don't have it, they give you similar
and that
shows.
does work sometimes, right? Yeah, so that's one approach. One approach that we've also dealt with is, let's say you have a family of companies and maybe another company in your family does sell that product. What you can do is go, okay, I just landed on a page with 0 results. I'm going to rerun that same query, but I'm going to expand out to these other spaces and I'm going to show results for that. And I think what Paul mentioned before is really interesting. Like, if you have some affiliate model, and that might not align with your strategy, but if it does, that is potentially a kind of low cost way of testing whether you're going to get engagement with that brand. So if you've got an index of all the affiliate links that you could show, and then instead you just rerun another search and display those results, that could be another way of approaching it as well. The final thing that you can potentially do is, if they're well-known brands, this concept-based search we have will probably expand the search space. So if you search for Nike, it will just, you can expand the margin of error and it'll probably show results for Adidas, but that's only going to work for really common themes. But yeah, I think it comes down to what your strategy is, what you're trying to achieve, and the different bits of data you might have. I think there's a follow-up question here.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think we just addressed it. So Emily has asked, it's a little bit tricky because what range of products would be the best alternative? For example, I search for La Prairie on Adore Beauty and they don't stock it. So what should you show? Because obviously it is a range of products. Do you show the foundation, the cream, the eye cream, the cleanser? My question to you then, just to take that, Emily, is could you go using the stuff you were talking about earlier, where you can customize that search based on what that person has previously looked for? So say, for example, Emily's gone there and she buys foundation. That's the biggest thing she buys from Adore Beauty. can we get the machine learning, the AI, to say, if you search for La Prairie, what I'm going to move up the list is a similar brand of foundation?
That's definitely possible. Yeah, and in some instances, you don't even need machine learning. You just need the inputs. You need what is the similar brand and what does that person like, and you're essentially reconstructing the query. So yeah, that is definitely one way of approaching it. The other thing, to address the question, foundation, eye cream, that type of thing, what you can do is, if that query is typed often, you can understand what is the category that's most likely to sell for that. That may not happen if you don't actually stock it, but for things that are commonly sold on your website, you can build models that will say, well, when I search for this brand, people tend to buy the eye cream, therefore show the eye cream first. Those things should get a little bit of a boost. So yeah, really interesting question. And
Great question.
It was a great question. Yes.
Awesome.
Hopefully, Emily, that has answered your question in quite a great depth. We probably need to finish up there. We're right on time. Thank you guys so much. I have, being a complete data nerd, I have loved this conversation. And I can't wait to see what is going to happen on the Strandbag site, because I am a shopper on your website, and to see all of these things. I swear that Alex is going back to like roadmap all of the things we just talked about.
thankfully, a lot of them
Search.io.
are already there.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Selena.
guys.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you all.
Thanks, Selena. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.